that people don't have faith that it will run according to schedule.
I think the conclusion of voter apathy can only be done at the end of the day when we see the figures.
Because we won't
so
know.
let's
won't
not
know at this point.
Let's not predict voter apathy very early in
But
the
then
day.
again, it could also be, like you rightfully said, that their lack of confidence that INEC will stick to the timing.
Okay, we have the candidate of the Labour Party, Gbadebo Rose-Vivor, GRV as they call him, about to exercise his franchise too.
Where is this?
Well, that I'm sure that to be somewhere on the. Okay, that's the Keja in Anifo-Oshe.
Okay.
In Anifo-Oshe. It will look
Likewise
like
too,
it will look like
very
he's the
busy.
main challenger, isn't it? You know, at this point.
Where there are challengers.
Not that you talk about main challenger.
There are challengers.
Is he the main challenger because of who he is and what he can offer and his capabilities?
For whichever
or
reason.
main challenger because
He's the candidate of the party that won the election 3 weeks ago, and that counts for something. You know, but I mean, there will be other reasons why
It would
whoever
have
will
been more
emerge.
interesting to know that we are voting for a candidate because of their capability and their ability to deliver, rather than because they belong to the right party.
Yeah, but that's not in doubt. I mean, he has.
But I don't think that is different. That is not what we're discussing
at all.
No, I'm just serious.
The electorate will decide. And I think let's just leave them to decide. They have seen enough. They've heard enough from all the candidates.
Exactly.
So let them just decide today.
Exactly.
It's not a day for actually deciding.
I guess
Talking
it's
about
not,
whether
just
capability.
something I've always wondered.
No.
You know,
The
candidate
electorate
or
will
party.
decide today.
Well, true.
I mean, all the elements will be, you know, will
Put
will
into
be
consideration.
put into consideration.
Party, capacity, conviction.
But I mean, each will have his strengths and weaknesses, and you can't take away from somebody who lost by the whiskers, you know, election in the biggest senatorial district.
Who lost by the whiskers?
In 2019, he ran to be a senator in Lagos.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yes.
did he lose by the whiskers?
Yes, he did. You know, Yayi had 41%. He had 39.6%.
Okay, that was close.
It was close. You know.
So obviously not his first time.
So
not a political no fight.
it isn't. It isn't. And I don't think that young age should count against anybody.
It should be an advantage, if anything else.
Absolutely. Which could be, you know, one of the reasons why there is a surge in his candidacy all of a sudden.
Of course,
surge
don't
is
forget that
because of his
President
party.
Muhammadu Buhari signed the not too young to run
bill.
into law.
Yes.
Now, an
But that
act.
doesn't reflect in our
No, and he
presidential-
said that after him, the youth can take over.
But in the presidential, that didn't reflect now. We don't have any young presidential candidates.
It's a politics. It evolves. It's over a period of time. People have talked
But we had
about
an under 50 presidential candidate in what's his name? No, Omoyele Sowore is 51. There's a 48-year-old
Who was
gentleman.
48-year-old?
Yes, Kachiku.
But we hope the time will come where we will actually have young, vibrant.
But what is happening now is
presidential
that some of
candidates.
these old guards, they have been, their time will just pass. Because
Okay, nature will
yes,
just-
because the people born in the last 20, 25 years don't know what some of these old people
At
have
all.
done.
At all.
So they are now relating with the new faces, the new kids on the block, as
That's
it
it.
were. They may not get it this time around, but I'm sure
Yes.
it will continue to evolve.
That reminds me of the Delta State debate where the young man was telling another rival, Daddy,
Yes.
step down.
Yes.
And Daddy said, no, it's not your time yet.
Okay, so GRV is addressing the media now.
Okay, they say I should.
No, this way. No.
Wait.
She's back a bit.
All right, okay, guys. I need you to take time and get arranged, please. I don't want people to be stressing yourselves. Right? All right. Good morning, everybody.
It was just about addressing the media personnel in Anifo-Oshe, in Ikeja, but I'm sure that we'll get back to him. But that's good. We've seen Asiwaju, vote, and now candidate of the Labour Party. There are other people that we vote. But before we return to that, let's get back to Dr. Charles Omole in Abuja. And I think, Ruth, you wanted to ask him a question.
Dr. Charles, I recall that you did say that in certain states, the security personnel... Are you with us? Come back when you finish drinking your water. I recall that you said that there were certain states that there was more more presence of security personnel. You mentioned Kaduna, you mentioned Kano, you mentioned Lagos, you mentioned Rivers. But if I recall, when we looked at Rivers, there was hardly any security. There was just one. So is it a question of you bring in more as and when needed for the states? Okay, I think we've...
yeah, we couldn't get Dr. Omole, so...
But did you notice that Gbadebo didn't have any security people around him? Was that...
I'm not sure we can tell from here, you know, but...
But he didn't have any of his usual... You know how they usually have at least security or guards or something? Okay, they could be plain clothes. But he looks like he was alone there.
And I think that's where one of the requirements, one of the guidelines is not to come in with security personnel.
But that's not what happened in the presidentials. Well,
I'm not sure that. Okay, this is when Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president-elect, arrived moments ago when he arrived at his polling unit in Alausa in Lagos, and I think he must have voted by now. Not sure if he addressed the media yet.
He might not have.
Yeah.
It's the scantiness I still can't get over.
Is the what?
How scanty it is compared to 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, which is an interesting development. I mean, Emmanuel and Achike, when we say that it was buzzy, you know, 3 weeks ago, at the end of the day, it ended up being barely 30% of those who had PVCs.
Yes, but we must also be careful. Also, I mean, about talking about the eventual number of people that voted, because, I mean, the Ovieteme talked about, no, I think one of the people, people that were interviewed, he was saying something about a beehive of activities too.
Yes.
And that ultimately at the end of the day, about half or more than half of the people who came were not able to vote. And so what does that tell you? If in one polling unit you had about maybe 700, 300 were able to vote, 400 were not able to vote. So you also look at that and then do your maths across the nation.
That's true.
And you ask yourself how many millions turned up to vote and did not vote.
That's correct.
So it might not exactly be a true reflection of apathy with that 27 million.
That's true.
Much more, because again, we talked about, just like Emmanuel also emphasized on some of the logistic issues that characterize that particular election. Some came and some INEC ad hoc staff came to their place of duty by 2 p.m., some by 4, 5 p.m. in many parts of the country.
And some the following day.
And some, okay, that's some
like you worry.
You understand? So how do you explain that? So what's the number of people that were actually turned away, or the number of people that went to the polling unit, waited till 4 and nothing happened, and then they went home and never came back? So these are some of the issues, and I think it would be unfair to Nigerians to say, look, they did not show as much enthusiasm in the presidential election as they showed in 2019.
Yeah, but this might encourage people to come out more now that they see that it's not as packed. But
don't forget, look, when people watch what is going on now from Arise Television, it's been positive so far.
Yes.
Perhaps not in terms of the number, but in terms of the vibes you get from this election, that, look, it's fairly peaceful. We have not seen any sign of trouble anywhere. But don't also forget that the activity is going on social media that we might not, be able to adequately cover.
That's
and
right.
social media has a much, much wider reach, because it's everybody in all the polling units in this country, real time, seeing what is going on and tweeting about what is going on. So if you have pockets of problems maybe in Surulere, in Adamawa, in any part of Nigeria that we are not covering right now at this particular point in time, then that will get on social media. A lot of people are going to see it.
Yes.
So while we are trying to mobilize people, for instance, to tell them, look, it's going well, go out there and vote. People might be, on the verge of being demobilized on the basis of what is happening in other places, being reported on social media.
Let's hope the low turnout now would encourage people to come out more and assure them that they will get a chance to vote, unlike before.
Yeah.
All right, so we have Dr. Charles Omole in Abuja ready to join us now. Ruth, do you want to proceed with your question?
I was asking you that you had said earlier on that certain states have more security on ground for their polling units. You mentioned Lagos State, Kaduna, and what have you, including Rivers. But we spoke to our correspondent in Rivers State, and there was barely any presence. If anything, it was just one Lone Ranger security person that we saw. And one is wondering whether this is so because there are not that many people there yet. And then as the numbers increase, you would send the required security to these units. Is that what the plan is?
Possibly. I mean, the situation in terms of the police deployment is when you have a national election such as this, the police is actually stretched. In terms of default numbers of police officers, Lagos clearly has the highest number of police contingent under normal circumstances. And those states I mentioned, Kano, Kaduna, Rivers, equally have, big numbers. But unlike off-cycle election where you can move officers from one state to go and support their colleague in another state, you cannot do that in a national election. So I probably choose to believe that nothing is happening yet. It also could be that the police in Rivers are applying a different tactic. For example, you could have your response team in each area command. They are out of view. They will only be called upon when there are substantial things that they need to intervene with, whereas the normal officers in the various polling units will be largely unharmed. And of course, it's not only, the other thing you also need to bear in mind is that it's not only police. The figure given by the IG of 400,000 security personnel includes all the security agencies, civil security agencies put together, because the police clearly, they don't have 400,000 personnel. They have just about 300,000 or so. So it's possible that there are other security agencies present, but not police. So people might mistake that to mean there is no security, whereas there is.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Mole, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you indeed. Now we'll be going to our correspondent, Tokunbo Oyetunji, who witnessed it all, I believe in Alausa. Hello, Tokunbo, are you there?
Hi, Steve. I'm still here at Alausa, where the president-elect, former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, just voted at this polling unit right behind me, like we showed earlier on, Steve.
All right, so how did he go? And then we've been talking about turnout. We know that there's an improvement, at least from your end, if you compare to what happened as at this time to 3 weeks ago. But then on the general note, what will be your assessment? Asiwaju has been there, now he's left. What is the situation? Do we have more people compared to last time? And what is the expectation?
I say we have more people, really. I think the crowd is even thinner than what we had during the presidential election, where this whole place I'm standing today. Let's even start with the timing of the starting of the process. Like I was trying to tell you earlier on, the process actually started at exactly 8:30, the stipulated time by the Independent National Electoral Commission for polls to open right here at this polling unit. Unlike what we witnessed 3 weeks ago, when the officials, the personnel of INEC would not even arrive here until about this time, a few minutes before 10 o'clock, clearly an hour and a half behind schedule on that day. So looking at the opening of the process, the timing, we've witnessed a difference in that today. So talking about the turnout of people, I think if anything, if what I see here today compared to what I saw during that presidential election is anything to go by, I would say the turnout has not been that encouraging. But that is not to say this is the only polling unit that I've been to, because, of course, like I said, this was where we were expecting the president-elect to vote, and this is where he voted. So probably when we move away from here, or we'll still stay here for some time more, we could see more voters coming out to actually exercise their rights here. We don't know what the situation is elsewhere. Of course, there is another polling unit just down the street here. Even 3 weeks ago during that presidential election, the turnout of voters there was bigger than what we recorded here. But it's still too early, Steve, to actually determine whether the turnout will be lower or better than what we recorded during the presidential contest.
Since you've been there or whilst you're there, have you actually spoken to anybody around to sort of get a feel of what their thoughts are at this point in time concerning this voting process? Have you been able to talk to anybody or just ask them how they feel?
I mean, I've been interacting with people, even colleagues, who think that the arrival of the personnel of the Independent National Electoral Commission actually signals that it's most likely going to be a better process than we witnessed during that contest. Even some other voters, some people who are standing around here too, we don't know whether all of them are voters though, they seem satisfied so far with the process, but we don't know what the day has in stock for us. So we are going to be watching, we are going to be keeping video, we're going to be observing the process and give more report on what the situation is then, that we can determine whether it's actually better or is lower in standard than what we had witnessed 3 weeks ago.
Okay, Tokunbo, so timing and logistics pass mark from what you have said so far, but in terms of the technology, usage of beavers, and turnaround of people being accredited and voting, will that also end your pass mark from what you have observed so far?
Definitely, Steve. I mean, when maybe you could say maybe that may not be the best way to judge the functionality of the technology. I think it took the president-elect less than 5 minutes to actually get accredited and cast his votes. At this point, and even others that had been here before him. We had his daughter, the Yaloja General of Nigeria, Folashade Ojo, who had equally been here. It took her less than 5 minutes actually to get accredited and cast her vote. So far, and I've not heard, and I've not seen any voter who has come here and rejected because they are unable to get accredited. So far, I think the beavers are functioning well, but we don't know if the functionality will remain the same all through the day, or there will be some kind of a change.
All right, Tokunbo, I mean, just to a word of caution there on Iyaloja General of the Federation. I think you should be cautious in promoting Folashade Ojo. She is still Iyaloja for Lagos, not for Nigeria yet. So that's just by way.
Is there a position?
Pardon my error. Iyaloja of Lagos.
Thank you very much, Tokunbo. Good job so far. Thank you.
But it's easy to say that the process is okay. Well, okay.
All right, we'll go on a short break. Thank you so much, Achike Chude and Emmanuel Efeni, for a great job.
Thank you.
Don't
so
go
much
away, viewers. We'll be back shortly. Still the RI special coverage of the governorship and House of Assembly elections in Nigeria. Stay with us. We'll be back soon.
running my business on my own. Trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business we vote. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business we vote.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Every day, life presents hopes, dreams, and challenges. Challenges that can become successes with a little help. Because a little help can empower you to go from despair to celebration. A little help can keep you going until the race is won. A little help can turn bundles of anxiety into a bundle of joy. And with Glow Data, you get much more than just a little help. You get the biggest data deals in town to make every day glow with small wins and big wins. Dial *777# to select your Glow Data plan.
Ladies and gentlemen,
you see as it be now, they call me but no be me show. That's how some business owners will have a different name on their business account from the actual business name. Listen, don't let your customers be suspicious of your business. Sign up for a business account with Money Points and get an account in your business name in minutes.
Whatever it takes to make sure you have a business account opened in your business name, we'll do it as your sure banker. Open a bank account in your business name with Money Point.
My brother, my
ladies and gentlemen,
You see as it be now, they call me but no be me show. That's how some business owners will have a different name on their business account from the actual business name. Listen, don't let your customers be suspicious of your business. Sign up for a business account with Money Points and get an account in your business name in minutes.
Whatever it takes to make sure you have a business account opened in your business name, we'll do it as your sure banker. Open a bank account in your business name with Money Point.
my brother, my sister, imagine this woman is your mother. Imagine if this man is your father. Imagine that young girl was your sister. Imagine if these people you see in this video are related to you. Just one mistake, electoral violence will make all of their dreams destroyed. That is why you and I must shun electoral violence at all costs. And remember that we are not doing it for only ourselves, but for our people, our community, our country, and our world. Peace is all we ask for.
It's time to bring into conversation our next set of guests. Award-winning broadcast journalist, lecturer and public policy analyst, Adeni Yukunu. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. A wonderful Saturday morning to all of us.
Same to you.
Yes,
is it that wonderful?
Yes, it is. It's peaceful. It's what we expect, considering all the talks and fears about what could happen. I think that the level of civility might have improved for the past 3 weeks, and disaffections are beginning to ebb off. So we're happy that there's peace, and I could come here in one piece as well. It's key.
But there's this feeling of being slightly underwhelmed by the turnout of the voters so far.
Well,
What's your take on that?
Well, a number of theories have been spawned, and we can't just jettison those realities. If, for instance, you have yourself on the track in a race, and each time
interesting that we are on, I did not know you would come here, but interesting that we're on this street. This was the street where I was raised, right? You know, behind you is Ilizik. Nnamdi Azikiwe built this house. This is where he used to live. He was one of the first settlers in this area of Lagos, and it's a community that has been built based on, you know, the Lagosian, the indigenous Lagosian is welcoming. It's not tribal. It's exposed. And that's why Lagos State will become the center of excellence. But unfortunately, the APC government takes its strength from division, violence, intimidation. And this is what they've done for almost 2 decades. So, by God's grace, the will of the people will prevail. And this government that gets its validity based on voter intimidation will be a thing of the past.
From the information you got from your party agents, how will you describe and assess this conduct of the election?
There's been a lot of targeted voter suppression. Currently now at VGC, the polling agents do not want to go into the estate. Instead, they are trying to get the people to come to the express, where they've colluded with thugs to harass and disenfranchise them. So that's already an illegal thing, because INEC, the pollings have an address, they have a location, and it is not on the highway. So we are working to respond to that. But you see, this just puts the entire exercise, you know, the credibility of it into question. You have a situation where in Alimosho, in Iba, till 10 minutes ago when I checked, polling materials have not arrived. So you find that everywhere that we are strong and we show strength, either polling materials are yet to arrive. You have a situation where in Alimosho, the polling agents, the polling ESCOs, the EOs for the polling are saying that they were not paid the last time, so they are not going to the field. But how does that concern us? INEC has been funded to do all of these things. So, you know, it's a ploy just to try to manipulate the election. So,
if you do not win, like I said earlier, if you don't win this election, will you definitely congratulate the winner?
In an election that, see, you must win and win well. Oh. I'm not somebody that comes out and pulls back punches. You must win and win well. There must be transmission of votes, which is the electronic procedure. There must be a situation where this voter intimidation is corrected, right? And there must be a clear attempt by INEC to actually have a credible election. If that's not the case, I'm not congratulating someone that has this mandate from voter suppression and intimidation. Why would I do that? I'll go to court.
Okay, so what message do you have for your supporters and the Lagos residents in this ongoing election?
This is a fight for the soul of Lagos. It's a fight to take away voter intimidation, voter suppression, a mandate that only has credibility and validity in violence. It's not by performance, it's not by the people actually wishing them into position, it's by violence, intimidation, inducement, and a group of people, a new group of people are coming out to say enough is enough. They want a government that's accountable to them. They want a government that works in their interest, not the interest of a state capture, right? And that's what you saw in the last election, and by God's grace, that's what you see again today.
What do you have to tell INEC, please? What do you have to say to INEC?
INEC must transmit votes electronically. We've gotten reports from Osborne 2, from several other places where the beavers has already been preloaded. And that's not acceptable, right? We are not fools. Right? And we're going to resist all of that. So whatever intimidation that they want to do, by God's grace, the will of people will prevail in this election. It's a battle for the soul of Lagos. It's a battle for a government for the people. This election is a battle for the soul of Lagos. It's a battle where we want to put in a government for the people that works for the people and is focused and centered on the interests of the people, not the current state capture that has happened in Lagos for the last 24 years.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, please, sir. European Union.
All right.
All right, so that was Gbadebo Rose-Vival, the candidate of the Labour Party, giving insights on what this is all about, to him. But just before we continue, Mr. Deni Kunu, just to say that we also have in the studio in Lagos with us, Emmanuel Efeni still, and in Abuja,
refusing to leave us.
Ma Odi, who will also be joining us. But Mr. Kunu, you were making a point. I think if you can link that to what Gbadebo has said and what we are seeing so far.
Definitely it's possible. In the first place, when somebody's on a racetrack and whilst you're ready to actually hear the sound of the gun and there's an infraction because somebody amongst the runners actually jumped, you find out that each time that error comes up, the enthusiasm and being fired up reduces. And that's a fact of the matter. 25th, we were supposed to wait for 2 weeks and people were all out and ready and were told just 48 hours before Saturday, Wednesday night, that the election had been extended or postponed by 1 week. That, in the first place, would make people who perhaps have traveled to the core interiors of their villages to actually feel, goodness me, what is going on here? And they have to return for businesses. Don't forget that the fact that we're on holidays for about a month or thereabout because of this election has resulted in people not attending to their businesses, or even some organizations are operating in half. That's one part. The issues that emanated following the elections of February 25 are realities that we have to look at as more or less as the microcosm of a larger Nigerian problem. Because if you check it, we're talking about INEC. But INEC is only one of the several institutions responsible for the delivery of good governance. INEC is one in the many chains of value expected that people should leverage and experience the betterment of their lives. So when INEC, for instance, goes into an election and you find out that certain things that happened at the respective polling unit actually contravenes the obvious provisions in the Electoral Act 2022 as amended, obviously that's another thing. We also found out that certain persons were injured at the February 25th poll. Because if you're talking about the reason people are not as out as we see them, you need to bring all of the reasons together. And that is why theories are very important to solving problems, especially if you are doing dissections within the academia. So that is also one part of the issue here, that a lot of people who perhaps felt their lives were threatened, maybe after they found out they didn't support them or vote for a certain political party, also have their lives more or less like, is it about election? Then if you look at it, the thing said by Rose-Vival, the candidate of the Labour Party, is also spun into the narrative regarding the fact that some polling units that were supposed to be on certain estate, of course, the things he said could still be at the level of allegation because we're not taking there. Definitely. We've not had your correspondent talk about it. Right. So for now, the alleged, improper position of the people that should be on the estate but were outside is also another factor. It talks about inducement, talks about threat, talks about all of those things. Well, we could say that some of those things were true from the last election, but the thing that he said now, some of those have to be verified. But in all, it must be said that the Nigerian system, particularly the process of addressing issues or doing things, must evolve. Must evolve because we are a leading nation. And if you check virtually all walks of life across the globe, Nigerians keep adding value and are core part of the process of advancement in many advanced democracies. It means, therefore, that this nation has the capacity to replicate even something more than that, because immediately if your best hands and heads are not delivering the value that could actually result in incremental investment and particularly foreign exchange for your country, then another country benefits from that. We know how many Nigerians are in the cabinet of President Joe Biden as we speak, and of course the UK government. So I want to say here that this process that we perhaps have not managed well should be the issue. And we must also ensure that ditto all walks of life, particularly as it concerns governance, as it concerns government policy, as it concerns fiscal finance, we must begin to look at the areas where processes are not done well. There was something the Labour Party governorship candidate said. He said some people didn't come to the polling units because they've not been paid for the last election. Let me say this. I have right on my phone. If I take my phone, I'll show you somebody who sent me that it was part of the last, one of the ad hocs. They paid the person last week, just 2 or 3 days ago. INEC paid the person.
For the job done.
For the job done 3 weeks ago. This is international TV. My phone is out there. I can read the message right here. I'm saying here that INEC should also endeavor that things like this don't happen. Pensioners will work. Data say, for instance, 90-month backlog of pensions. And the same state produced a running mate for governorship candidate. These are things we bring to the fore. Lagos, for instance, we're talking about certain issues regarding the sanity of the streets of Lagos. The sanity associated with people who don't have business managing our traffic, holding state. Those are some things that so process is very key. So I have to say that as far as these elections are concerned, whilst people will go to court as they are already in court for the February 25 elections, it must be made very clear that things associated with INEC not paying people as and when they should pay people is a reflection of the larger Nigerian problem, and INEC cannot be subtracted from that burden because it is a bigger body that INEC is representing.
All right.
Yes, please.
All right, Mr. Kuno. Let's hook up with Dr. Joe Abba. It's actually Dr. Abba that we have in Abuja studios. He's a former Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms. Good morning, Dr. Abba. Good to have you join us on this special coverage.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Ruth. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Well, voting is underway. What are your thoughts? What are your expectations? Can INEC get it right this time around? Are you confident?
Well, my thoughts, first of all, are a sense of gratitude that our democracy is 24 years old. We've come from a very long way from the times of military rule to when people were just writing results in hotel rooms while voting is going on, to a scenario where with the 2022 Electoral Act, a number of the issues and challenges that had been identified that impeded INEC's ability to perform have been addressed. They were given first-line charge in terms of their budgeting. The money to them was to be released at least a year before the elections. They were given powers to review and upturn the results issued by the head of a polling unit. They were given authority to decide how to transmit results. So a number of things that had been contentious issues in the past, the Electoral Act tried to address. And even in the middle of a cash crisis, I understand that INEC was provided with the cash that it needed to run the elections. They were provided with petrol to ensure that, or at least their vendors were provided with petrol to ensure that they were able to work. The Electoral Act also recognized the role of technology and validated it. And so, yes, INEC was empowered with almost everything that I think it needed to do to run good and credible elections. There were, of course, challenges in the presidential elections. The hope is that the 2 weeks between then and now is enough for INEC to have fixed a number of those challenges. I noticed, for instance, that for a change, INEC is now engaging on social media and providing frequent updates, because communication was one of the key weaknesses in the presidential elections. People had certain expectations which INEC itself had raised, particularly with regards to the electronic transmission of results. And you know, a number of people came out early to vote. The INEC officials were nowhere to be found in a number of places. So, you know, the hope is that today's elections, INEC officials would have arrived on time. It's been mixed stories so far across the country. In some places, they were there right on time. In other places, they haven't been. There have been reports of low voter turnout, and, you know, that is attributable possibly to a number of things, including you know, maybe it's just early and we just need to wait a little bit more to see whether the voter turnout improves. But I suspect that in some cases too, there may have been a sense of disillusionment, particularly for people who came out to vote in the last elections, stayed out under the sun and the rain, and were not able to vote. A number of the young people may also have felt that their expectations were not met. And like I said, a number of those expectations had been raised by INEC itself. So my hope is that those lessons would have been learned and that today's elections will be better than the one of the presidential one. Thank you.
I'd like to ask you, Dr. Ava, that there have been some speculations, some accusations and speculations that some of these polling units, like the Ruth Bible just said, that a polling unit that was supposed to be inside VGC was not being held outside the estate. There have been some speculations that in some other areas, there have been hoodlums already, you know, causing havoc. My issue is, with INEC deciding or promising to deliver and not have any hindrances, shouldn't there have been a line, a hotline or so that you can call belonging to INEC when you see such discrepancies happening? They should have made that available so anybody that sees what's untoward or what is not supposed to be happening can easily call, and they have access to INEC to make their complaints, and INEC can immediately rectify that problem. What's your take on that?
Ruth, is a very good point, and although elections are you know, complex project management activities to undertake, particularly where there are interdependencies in various areas. So INEC has to work with transporters to move materials. It has to rely on security agents. It has to find a way to, you know, constrain the desperation of politicians. So, you know, all of these things are difficult things to do. However, we need to separate those things that are within INEC's control to do. So when INEC makes an announcement following the presidential elections that, you know, uploading results onto the IREV was not possible because of technological challenges, it is entirely valid to think, well, didn't you have a plan in case something didn't go well? You know, shouldn't you have known that there will be a large amount of traffic on the platform? So I agree with you that INEC needs to do everything to make sure that those things that are within its own control are done in the best way possible. You can then, you know, look at the other interdependencies that are not entirely within their control. But those things within their control, like you said, like having a hotline that people can report infractions to, should be there. And that's why, like I said, I was happy that INEC's Twitter handle is actually providing updates